Everybody get in your Bibles and go to 1 Kings chapter 18 as we're continuing to look at the fact that we are to be a light in a dark world. And the example we're looking at is that of Elijah. Elijah was a prophet during a very dark time in the history of the nation of Israel. When Israel was the 10 tribes up north, the king was Ahab, the queen was Jezebel, and they'd come through quite a long string of very bad kings and gotten further and further away from the Lord. They still had, in fact, the golden calves in Israel, which Jeroboam had set up. They still had the groves and all the other things up in the hills. But even more than that, in the capital city of Samaria, they had a temple to Baal. They had places to worship basically to all the various different religions of the area and the neighbors, and the heart of the people was turned against God. And it is in that backdrop that we have one guy, Elijah, willing to stand up and say, I will be a light in this dark place. Was he because he was greater than everybody else? Was it because he was sinless? Is it because God had done something amazing in his life? No. In fact, all we know about it is he decided, what? I'm going to be a light. I'm going to go and I'm going to tell. He started praying, according to the book of James, that it would not rain. He knew that would get the people's attention. And God answered that prayer and allowed him to basically control the weather and to say, it will not rain. And we saw last week, as even in all of that, there was still trouble, wasn't there? As he had that great victory in it not raining, getting people's attention. But then, as he went and God was taking care of him with this widow, the widow's son died, and still bad things can happen. But we see Elijah not giving up on God. And that's the key, isn't it? Through it all, you want to be a light, make sure God is first. That you are praising and glorifying him and do not give up on him. Whatever he's doing, he is in control, isn't he? Don't get depressed. Don't get down. Know that God is in control. And then we can truly be a light, can't we? As we're focused on getting him out to the world. And today we're going to see a great victory. As finally Elijah is going to step out of Zidonia, where he has been, this foreign nation where he has been, and he's going to finally come back to Israel, and he's going to glorify God in this dark place. But what I want to focus on today is the keys to victory. Sometimes it's hard. How many here play chess? Anybody here play chess? I used to teach people to play chess a lot when I was in high school. And I would teach them, the one thing you have to learn in chess is how to win. Most people, when they start playing chess, they think the whole objective is to take the other guy's pieces. And that's all they do. The whole game is just take pieces, take pieces, take pieces. And that's not the objective to chess. The objective to chess is to get them into checkmate. In fact, it is easier to get them into checkmate the less pieces you take. But you have to have that instinct to say, I'm going to maneuver towards victory. Not just beating the other guy, but actually to victory. And I find it such an important idea in the Christian mind as well. Our objective should be victory, shouldn't it? It should be, as we sang about, to bring them in, to glorify God, to be a light in the world. That should be our goal, not just taking their pieces, right? Not just fighting them and battling them and embarrassing them. That should not be our objective. Our objective should be light, right? And we're going to see today how to win victories. We're going to have battles all the time, aren't we? And in those battles, they're going to try to get us to do the dark thing so that light cannot get out. But we need to learn to do the light thing, right? And have that victory of showing people God. So what we're going to look at today, it's all in 1 Kings chapter 18. If everybody will go there with me. And we're going to see a very important factor right up front. 1 Kings chapter 18. How does it start? The very first words are, and it came to pass. And this is very important. Who is in charge of timing? Well, most of the time I think I am. And therein lies the problem, right? The very first key to victory is trust God's timing. Because something you have to understand here is that from the time that he told King Ahab it would not rain, until the time it actually rained again, according to the book of James, it was 3.5 years. Is that a long time? Now let me ask you something. What was Elijah doing for 3.5 years? Well, he was down by that little brook getting fed by ravens, but then he had to pick up and he had to go to this widow's house. And he's been living there with the widow and her now alive son, who died and was brought back, and been living there for about a little over 3 years. What was he doing? Was he being a light in Israel? No, he wasn't even in Israel. He was in a foreign country. How many of you, I want you to think about it for a minute, how many of you would just die to go back? God, I want to go back and be a light. You're hearing word that people in your country are dying from this famine. You hear about all the terrible things. How many want to go back and just face Ahab? Want to face him down? Want to get this over? Want to go out back and preach and let people know about God is still with them? How many would want to go back to your people? Would want to go back and get it done? But what has God said? No. Just cool your heels. Hang out here until it is time. And sometimes that is the hardest thing to do, is to lay back and do what? Do nothing. And wait for God's timing. And how many, I know I've had this in my life. How many have had friends who aren't saved? Who have maybe family members who aren't saved. And all you want to do is just, and you think about all the times, all those opportunities you missed, all those times you could have said something, all those times you say, I've got to get in there, I've got to make an opportunity, I've got to get out there and tell them, I got to go and do this. How many times have you thought about it and really said, well, what's the right time? Can we always be praying for them? Yes. But do we also have to wait for God's timing, have to wait for their heart to be right? And I find myself beating myself up, saying, I didn't do this, and I didn't do that, I didn't do that. Well, maybe I wasn't supposed to. If I didn't feel the Lord really compelling me to, if I didn't really feel like I was supposed to, then I shouldn't be doing it. Timing is what, people? Everything. This is one of the things I learned in my life. Timing is everything. This goes for my job. This goes for home. This goes everywhere. You have to say the right thing at the right time. You have to do the right thing at the right time. And who's in control of that? God is. So for 3 years now, he has been sitting in a foreign country doing nothing. I'm sure he's praying. I'm sure he was reading his word. I'm sure he was out cutting wood, doing things like that. But you would say he wasn't much of a light to Israel, or was he? He still was. People were still talking about him. People, in fact, were looking for him. Really hard. Right? But sometimes we just have to wait for whose timing. And what should we do to make sure we know when that timing is right? Pray. Be praying. Be praying about it. Lord, at the right time, give me the words. At the Lord, give me the right thing to do. Lord, give me the right time that we may have victory at the right time. And when was the right time? It's those first few words, and it came to pass. That was the right time. That's when God said, it is now time to do something about this. It's time to bring the rain. It's time to bring the pain. I'm sorry about that one. Okay? I could have reversed that, but I thought the other one was better. Anyways, let's go. Came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, show thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah, here's another good point, what did he do? He went. Did he know Ahab was looking for him? Oh, yeah. Did he know Ahab wanted to kill him? In fact, did he know a lot of people in Israel wanted to kill him? Absolutely. But at the right time, we need to then do what? Go. Whatever God has instructed us. And it finally came. It is now time. What if he would have gone a year earlier? What if he'd gone 2 years earlier? What if he said, I'm just going to do it whenever I want to do it? It wouldn't have turned out the same, would it have? For true victory, we have to wait for God's time. And when that time comes, we need to what? Go. In fact, look at verse 3. And Ahab called Obadiah. No, not that Obadiah. It's a different Obadiah. It's not the one in your Bible, the book of the Bible. It's a different Obadiah. Called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now, Obadiah feared the Lord greatly. He was a man of God. For it was so when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. How many would agree that Obadiah was a man of great faith? How many would say he had great strength and trust in the Lord? And Obadiah is one of those interesting guys to me, and I find myself and him a little bit, where how many are willing to do big things, but when it comes to little things, we shirk and shrink a little bit. Sometimes we'll do that. How many agree that Obadiah was willing to do a big thing? He was willing to stand up to Jezebel, take 100 prophets of God, hide them in a cave, and then go back and feed them and give them water and bread. How dangerous was this? What would Jezebel have done if they would have found him and those prophets? Killed them all. But he followed God, and this was a big, big thing. But let's keep on with the story. Verse 5, And Ahab said unto Obadiah, Go into the land unto all fountains of water, and unto all brooks, peradventure we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive, that we lose not all the beasts. You get a little insight into Ahab here. He says, go out through the land and find any water you can. By the way, if there is any water, who needs it? His people need it. But who is Ahab concerned about? His beasts. I don't want my mules dying. Come on, Obadiah. Go find me some water. I can just picture him coming into a town. There's this little bitty well that whole town is just relying on to keep them alive. And Obadiah's got to come along and say, hey, got to take that for the king's mule. Guy's a jerk. Okay, let's just face facts. There's no way around that, okay? He's not a good guy. We've established that. So what does Obadiah do? Verse 6. So they divided the land between them to pass throughout, and Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. Now, I got to give Ahab a little credit. He at least went himself, right? He's willing to go do some work. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Elijah met him, and he knew him and fell on his face and said, Art thou my Lord Elijah? So, he runs into Elijah. Who's in control here? God's in control. He knows Obadiah is going to be, and he needs Obadiah. He has a simple task for Obadiah. Again, hiding 100 men, feeding them, keeping them from Jezebel, I'll do that. But now he has another task for him. I want you to go tell King Ahab that Elijah is here. And you know what Obadiah says to that? No way. That I'm not doing. Why? It seems like a little thing, doesn't it? Hasn't King Ahab been looking for Elijah? Wouldn't King Ahab be happy to find Elijah? But what's he afraid of? Verse 8. And he answered him, I am. Go tell the Lord, thy Lord, King Ahab, behold, Elijah is here. And Obadiah said, What have I sinned, that thou wouldest deliver thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me? He's afraid. And sometimes we can let the fear get the best of us, can't we? Verse 10. As the Lord thy God liveth, there is no nation or kingdom whither my Lord hath not sent to seek thee. And when they said, He is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they found thee not. And now you say, Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of the Lord shall gather thee whither I know not. And so when I come to tell Ahab, and he cannot find thee, he shall slay me, but I, thy servant, fear the Lord from my youth. From my youth. I've done the right thing, and you're trying to get me killed. Why would you assume that? Is Elijah a man of God? Is he somebody who just runs around playing tricks on people? Is God somebody who comes along and just plays tricks on people? Is he a God of chaos? Is he a God of pranks? course not. Why do we, and we get this in our head too. Oh God, if I go and do that, it'll be a disaster. Well, why would God send you if it was going to be a disaster? Oh Lord, if I go and do that, terrible things are going to happen. Everything's going to go wrong. Well, why would he send you if everything's going to go wrong? Why do we assume this? Who's whispering in our ear? Satan. He's the prankster. He's the liar, right? And he'll lie to us. And this seems like such a simple task for Obadiah, but he lets fear take control of him, and we cannot do that. Fear not to do whatever. Was Elijah willing to go and talk to Ahab as he was instructed after 3.5 years? Yes. He didn't let fear get a hold of him. And now he comes to Obadiah, who had already proven that he loves God, has already proven that he is willing to do big things for God. Yet now he's letting fear grab hold of him. Do not let fear get a hold of you. If God has asked you to do it, he will be there throughout, won't he? And he won't just pull the rug out from under you. The other side's not going to do something that he was unaware of, right? God's got it all in control. Fear not. If God has called you to go, go. And do what you're called to do. So, what happens? Verse 13. Was it not told my Lord that what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord, how I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave, and fed them with bread and water? Don't you realize? I've done great things. What should Elijah's response to that be? Well, if you did that, do this. If God helped you then, of course he's going to help you now, right? And it's funny how our mind works. Even by saying this, he should be reminded that God is with him. As we look back at all the times that we have been successful because of God's help, that should remind us that whatever the next task is should be no problem too, shouldn't it? But unfortunately, that's not the way it is for Obadiah until verse 14. And now thou sayest, go tell the Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. And basically he had a promise, swear, that he will be there when they get back. And on that, Obadiah finally went. Verse 16. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. So, was God kidding here? No, of course Elijah was there, right? This hasn't been a game of cat and mouse. This isn't a game with God. God needed him to talk to him. And Obadiah, in the end, did the right thing, right? So, fear not. Key so far. Trust God's timing, and when he tells you to go, go and fear not, right? God's got a plan. So, let's see the next thing. How does that meeting go? Verse 17. And it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah that Ahab said to him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? Now, here's a little secret. You probably figured it out already. As you go out and tell people the truth, they will blame you for everything. They will turn everything you say into a lie, and they will blame you for all the problems of the world. How the truth is the problem of the world, I will never figure out. How God is the problem of the world, I will never figure out. Who is the problem? Satan? Sin? Mankind? Human nature? Because of the fall, because of sin? That's the problem, isn't it? And when we come and when we say the truth, as we stand up and be a light, they will immediately try to douse that light, won't they? They will try to put something over that light. They will try to discredit that light. Because this is what he's been saying for 3.5 years. Ahab for 3.5 years has been saying it's all Elijah's fault. This is all God's fault. Bring your offerings to me. Bring your offerings to Baal. Bring your offerings to Ashtaroth. They can together defeat the God who has brought all this trouble on us. That's what they've been saying. Are you the one who has been troubling Israel? So what do we need to be willing to do? When they try to douse the truth, when they try to pervert the truth, when they try to twist it and they try to say it is bad, what must we do? Say the truth. No need to get angry. No need to get all upset. Just declare the Truth. And that's exactly what Elijah did. Ahab says what? Art thou he that troubles Israel? And Elijah answered, I have not troubled Israel, but you and thy father's house, in that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Balaam. I like how clear he is. It isn't like, oh, you've troubled them because you're a jerk. You're a meanie. You're a liar. You're a cheat. No. Why have they troubled Israel? Why are there such problems in the world? Is it because people are liars, people are terrible, people do sinful things, have terrible hearts, they're all going to hell? Is that why there's so much trouble in this world? No. You know why there's so much trouble in the world? Because we've turned against God. That's it. That's it. Because if you say anything else, you know what they'll say? Well, I'll stop lying then. Well, I'll just stop this, or I'll just stop that. Or they'll turn around and say, no, you're the one lying. What do you have to tell people? What is the problem? Get to the problem. If you want to shine a light, make sure you are speaking of the problem. And the problem is, in this world, they have turned against God and worship other things. That's it. This has been the problem from the beginning, isn't it? It has nothing to do with anything else, positions on anything else, doing anything else. It has only to do with that. They have turned against God and His ways and worship other things. How clear can you get? So what's the key to victory? Simply state the what? State the truth. Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. He could have said all kinds of other things. He could have leveled all kinds of other accusations. He could have attacked Jezebel. He could have attacked his character, could have attacked his policies, could have attacked the fact that he was going right then and there trying to take water away from people for his mules. He could have gone after all those things. But what did he state? Simply, no, it is your fault. But why? Because you've turned against God and you worship others. Bottom line. And that leads to a challenge. Let's see who is the real God then. Because that's what we're saying to this world, isn't it? It's the fact that they have turned against God. They've turned against salvation through Jesus Christ, and they try other ways. And I will tell you, from my experience, when you're working with people who believe other things, that's where you have to talk to them. I'm not going to insult you, your intelligence, your background, your family, your heritage, your language, or anything else. I'm not going to attack any of those things because that's not the problem. The problem is you're believing a lie and I have the truth. Let's talk about that. You say what you want to say. You say what you believe, and I will state the truth of what I believe. And then you decide. And that's exactly what he does. Now, he does it very dramatically here. But this is the bottom line of what he does. He says, okay, here's the problem. You're not worshiping God, the one true God, the God of your fathers, and instead worshiping this guy Balaam. So, let's have it out. Let's not arm wrestle. Let's not have a debate. Let's just have it out. Who's the real God? Balaam or Jehovah? So he puts up a challenge. Verse 19, therefore, send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. 850. You bring 850 priests and all of Israel to pay attention, because this is, what's the objective here? The objective is not to do something against the prophets of Baal, it's to get the message out where? To all the people. To shine the light of the truth, right? That's always the objective. Let's get everybody together and let's have a challenge on Mount Carmel. Is that Carmel? Carmel? Caramel? No, we won't get into that. Verse 20. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt you between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. It is very hard for people to respond to that, right? You're not attacking him. It's just like, hey, I'm not calling you wrong. I'm not calling you foolish. I'm just saying, hey, choose. And that is our objective, people. If you want to shine the light, shine the light. And only the light. And the light is the truth of who God is. If you want to challenge this world, turn on the light and see what they do with it. Can they choose to turn it off? Block it in their own mind? They can, but they've got to deal with it. And that's one of the beauties of truth, isn't it? If I shine a light, they have to do something with it. If I never shine a light, what can they do? Just go along in darkness, right? And you just go along and do nothing. But if I shine a light, especially according to God's timing, as directed by God, then they've got to do something with it, don't they? And that's what he's going to do. He challenges them to make a decision. Do something with the truth. Verse 22, Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put on fire under, and I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. I'm going to give them every advantage possible. They choose first, right? Let them choose. So they don't say, oh, we got a defective bullock. No, you choose. And you set it up there, and you set it on there, and you go to town, you set up however you want, and then I will do the same. No fire, though. Because who's supposed to provide the fire? By the way, who is Baal? He's nothing. In their eyes, he's who, though? He's the god of rain. How's he been doing the last 3.5 years? He's the God of lightning and thunder. How's he going to do? Again, he's even on their terms, right? Let's see who the real God is. Let's see if he is, this Baal, is who you say he is. He hadn't been doing well for 3.5 years, but we'll just put it to the test right here. Verse 24, And call you on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God that answers by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, It is well spoken. Before they said nothing. Choose how? Oh, okay. Let's do it. Let's have it. Now, you guys know how the story goes, don't you? How does the story go? Well, they decided to have a little challenge, right? And in that challenge, they start first. Again, their advantage, right? You go first. And if you can bring down fire, then the competition's over. But go. And they built their little altar, and they cut up their bullock, and they went ahead and put the logs on there like they're supposed to. And they prayed and did all their rituals and things like that. And they took the bullock, and they put it on there, and then they started to pray. Pray to whom? Well, to them it was Baal. Baal was very real to them. And we have to keep that in our mind, don't we? These things are very real to them. It's not because they're stupid, it's because they're lied to. Right? Not because they're defective or horrible people. It's because they've been lied to. And we need to keep that in mind. You realize how many people out there have had to deal with that in their life, have been told things from they were very little, that this is the truth, and they believe these things, and they won't turn against those things. They're societal things. They're everything to them, and they just believe these things, and they're very real to them. And basically what he's saying is here, go ahead. Do what is real to you, and let's see if it is real. Right? So he lets them go. Verse 27. They've set everything up, and they've started to pray, and it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them. Now, I don't necessarily recommend this, but Elijah, he starts mocking them, starts making fun of them. Now, who's that the benefit for? It's for the people watching. Okay? You're not going to get far. Was he going to change the mind of any of these prophets of Baal? No. I would not, if you're trying to actually bring somebody around, I don't recommend you mocking them. But he decides to start mocking them at noon. Then Elijah mocked them and said, "Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleeps and must be awaked." He's a god, but he's busy. So go ahead. Just start yelling louder. Cry louder. Maybe you need to wake them up a little bit, right? Because you have to remember, that's the way they kind of looked at gods, right? They were just, higher beings, but they needed to sleep and go. And so yell louder. So they did. Verse 28, "And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lancets till the blood gushed out upon them. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied unto time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, and there was neither voice, nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down." So, They kept praying and cutting themselves until it got to the point that those 450 guys, they were all just laying around basically bleeding out. And they said nothing anymore. They could not pray anymore. They had no more energy left, and they could do nothing. They've been going all day, but who were they praying to? Nothing. You realize how many people out there are praying to things that don't exist? Who are dedicating their life to things that are nothing? Don't mock them. I don't recommend that. But should we feel sorry for them? Because what do they need? They need God. They need the truth, right? They need the light. Let's turn on the light for them. So it came the time of the evening offering, as God had determined. So he goes and he sets up an altar, 12 stones, sets up the altar. And then what does he do? Well, he puts some wood on it. And he puts his bullock up there like he's supposed to. And he says, "Bring me some water." This is odd. Dug a little trench around, and they dumped the water on. Now, if I'm there from Israel, what am I thinking? Water. They have water. What's going on here? You're dumping all that water around? They dumped it, and then he said, "Let's do another one. Get another barrel of water, and let's dump that onto until everything is soaked. Everything is incredibly wet, and the trench around is completely filled up." Then what does he do? Verse 35. "The water ran round the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. And it came to pass in the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said." I like this. Does he need a big show? Do we need to put on a big show? They put on big shows. They do all this stuff. They do all this whipping up, and they do all this chanting, and they do all this stuff. That's the way they do it, and that's the key here. Are we supposed to do it God's way or world's way? Do it God's way. You know what I like about God's way? It's simple. It's simple. You don't have to use their tactics. You don't have to use their ways. You don't have to put on a show. Just give the simple truth. That's how a light works. Are lights fancy? Light bulbs fancy? We keep trying to make them fancy, but at the end of the day, they're just what? Glass putting off some light. It's pretty simple, isn't it? We can make all kinds of decorations around them and everything like that, but at the end of the day, it's just a light, right? Simple. And that's what he does, very simply. Verse 36, "It came to pass that he said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and that I have done all these things at thy word." He's not taking any credit here, is he? He's not saying, because I'm so great, do this thing. Because I'm so great, I will cause this to happen. In fact, he just calls himself a what? A servant doing his job. And that's our objective. We're going out and telling people this truth because God has directed us to, because God has given us this truth. Not because we're smarter than everybody else. Not because we're wiser than anybody else, but because we simply believe, right? Go and tell them that this is who it is, this God, and let's let everybody know that you are the one true God. Verse 37, hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. And that's the entire prayer. Again, what's the objective? So that they may be saved, that God may be glorified, that they may know Him and their hearts be turned back to Him. It's not so I can defeat my enemies, so I can destroy all the infidels, so I can destroy all of these people. No. I make Ahab look foolish. No. I want everybody to know God. So Lord, please show them that you are the one true God. And what happened? God can put on a show, okay? Not enough for us to put on a show, but God sure can. Verse 38, then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. It was and gone. Everything gone in a second, in a flash. Does God answer prayer? Verse 39, and when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, the Lord, He is the God. The Lord, He is the God. That's called effective witnessing, isn't it? Because he was willing to do what? At the right time, without fear, go and give King Ahab and the people the simple truth. Right? And that's what he did. Now, there's one last step. That's very important. If I can get the lid off. Oh, it's on there. Trust God's promises. Let me ask you something. Had it rained yet? Rained fire. That's not what he promised, was it? He promised rain. So look what happens, verse 42. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink, because Elijah told him to. Just go up and eat and drink and relax for a minute. And Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he cast himself down upon the earth and put his face between his knees. And he said to his servant, go up now, look toward the sea. And he went and looked and said, there is nothing. And he said, go again 7 times. Now, again, if you're Elijah, you just did this big thing. You just proved that he is the one true God. You also said it was going to rain. You send your servant, and he comes back and says what? Nothing. Okay. Now, does your heart drop a little bit? It's like, oh, we promised some rain here, and you got nothing? Not even a cloud? Not even a little speck? Nothing? But what is Elijah willing to do? I'm going to trust God's promise. Just go up 7 times. So this servant did. Went up there, looked, nothing. Went back there, looked, nothing. Went back, looked, nothing. Went back, looked, nothing. And then he looked. And what did they see? Verse 44, and it came to pass at the 7th time that he said, behold, there arises a little cloud out of the sea, like a man's hand. Is that a lot? But does he trust God's promise? Is it going to rain? And he said, go up, say unto Ahab, prepare thy chariot, and get thee down, that the rain stop thee not. How much faith does he have? Yeah, a little tiny cloud on the horizon is enough to say, Ahab, it's coming. Get in your chariot and head to a city, because it's going to be an abundance of rain. Does he trust God's promise? Do you trust God's promise? Even when maybe it doesn't look like it right away? Do you trust it's coming? Yeah. And it came to pass in the meanwhile that the heaven was black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain, and Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. So what is the result when we are willing to trust God's timing, not try to force it, not try to do it on our timing? Fear not. When he says go, go. Do whatever he calls us to do, even though it may be scary. Just go and do it. State the what? Truth. Stick to the truth. Do it God's way. Don't give in to the world's way. This is how I'm going to, prove it. This is how I'm going to do it. This is the way I can get to them. It's like, no, just state the truth and do it God's way. That ain't got to be frills. and then trust God's promises. What was the result? Well, one was he did get victory, right? Over the prophets of Baal. In fact, they ended up dragging their severely bled out bodies down, and he ended up executing them. Again, not recommended. So that's not our objective here. But he did have victory, so that was good. But more importantly, what happened? God was glorified. The hearts of the people turned back to who? The one true God. Even Ahab is starting to question things. Even Ahab's got to go back to Jezebel and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? It's one of those things. Ahab's one of those guys. You got to watch him a little bit. But he's even starting to think, if you would have seen what I saw, got to question this, right? God was glorified. That's the most important thing. And also there's one more thing. Elijah was strengthened. In fact, look at the final verse there in chapter 18. And the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Elijah's not a young man. He's not a marathon man. But he was able to run and beat Ahab to the city. Because he was what? Fired up. He was so fired up. It was like, this is great. And when we get those kind of little battles and we have the victory and the light goes out and you glorify God and everything's going right, isn't it exciting? And are we strengthened? Our soul is strengthened. Our life is revived. And that can be exciting, can't it? But unfortunately, there was another result. And Jezebel. That's what we'll look at next week. Because this is where it gets hard. When you have those great victories and you are strengthened and you are revived and you've glorified God, you've done everything right, and everything seems to be going right, and then the shoe drops. And Jezebel's going to say what? If you're not dead by tomorrow, my God did to me what I said I was going to do to you. And he's got to run for his life again. That's a kick in the head, isn't it? That can be tough. But can we get through those times too? We'll look at that next week. But right now, let's focus on winning. Let's focus on winning, not just beating the enemy, not just taking their pawns, taking their rooks, not just taking their pieces, not just trying to humiliate them. That's not victory. Victory is what? Victory is glorifying God. Victory is getting the truth of God out there. The victory is people's hearts turned to God. That is the victory, isn't it? And how can we do that? Wait for His timing. Don't fear to go out, to tell people the truth, doing it God's way, not all the frills and earthly ways, and then trust God's promises. Because if anybody is willing to turn to God and seek His forgiveness, will He forgive? Yes, He will. That's His promise, right? Will they be changed? Yes, they will, right? That's God's promise. And will He take care of us? That's God's promise too, isn't it? So keep these things in mind. That's how you truly have success. That's how you truly have victories. Let's pray. As I am without one plea, and as we stand here today, or sit here today, the question is, where do you stand with God? All of us have to answer that question. What Elijah came to the people and said, he said, you have to make a decision. Is it God that you're going to put your trust in, or something else? And I'm hopeful everybody here has said, I will trust Jesus. I will trust God for my salvation. I will live for Him. Who can do that? Anybody. Doesn't matter what we've done. What decisions we made in the past. How many bad decisions we made in the past. It doesn't matter. The truth is, anybody comes and asks Jesus to forgive them, He will forgive. And make us God's children. Right? And we just need to keep that in mind. So even as we sing this, I want you to think about yourself first. Am I right with God? Have I made that decision? Have I come and received salvation through Jesus Christ? And then even if you know you have made that decision, ask God, are there others that I should be talking to? Are there others in my life where now is the time to go and talk to them. Is now the time to make sure they know the truth, that they may come too. So let's sing.